The crystal whiskey tumbler shattered against the hard wall, sending shards of glass flying across the dark room. The echo rang out, sharp and violent, followed by the heavy, ragged breathing of a man who felt more like a caged animal than a billionaire. You missed. Nia stood her ground. She didn't flinch, didn't scream, and certainly didn't apologize. She just watched the jagged pieces of crystal settle on the expensive Persian rug about 3 feet to her left. Get out, the voice growled from the shadows. It wasn't a welcoming voice. It was a low, vibrating rumble that shook the air. I told Kim to stop sending me babysitters. Get out before the next one hits your face. Nia didn't move. She couldn't. Her landlord in Seoul had given her 3 days before he threw her things onto the street, and her family back in Lagos needed tuition money. Fear was a luxury she couldn't afford right now. You missed, she said again, keeping her voice steady, though her hands were shaking behind her back. You were aiming for the door handle. I can tell by the trajectory, but you threw it too wide. You missed by 6 inches to the left. Your aim is drifting, Mr. Han. It's embarrassing. Silence filled the room. The kind of silence that feels heavy, like the air before a thunderstorm. From the darkest corner of the penthouse, a figure stood up. Jae-sun Han was terrifyingly tall, broad-shouldered, and wearing a suit that cost more than Nia's entire life's earnings. He wore pitch-black sunglasses, even though the heavy blackout curtains were drawn tight, plunging the room into an artificial night. He held a cane in his right hand, gripping it so hard his knuckles were white. He took a step forward. Tap, tap. The sound of the cane on the marble floor was rhythmic, predatory. Who are you? He asked. His voice had dropped an octave. It was dangerous now. Quiet, Nia, she said. In the sensory rehabilitation specialist the agency sent. And I can fix your aim. Or, at the very least, I can stop you from destroying your own furniture like a toddler having a tantrum. He stopped. He tilted his head to the side, listening. It was animalistic, the way he focused on the sound of her breathing. A toddler, he repeated, the words tasting bitter in his mouth. You have an accent. African? Nigerian, Nia corrected. Does where I come from affect the fact that you are about to step on a piece of jagged glass with your left foot? Jae-sun froze. His left foot hovered just an inch above a nasty shard of crystal. He hadn't known it was there. Put your foot down, Nia whispered, and you'll bleed. Step 3 inches to the right. Jae-sun Han, the Dragon of Seoul, the man who controlled half the shipping lanes in the Pacific, hesitated. For a split second, the crack in his armor showed. The absolute terror of the unknown. The humiliation of needing help. He hated it. The rage rippled off him in waves. Slowly, he moved his foot 3 inches to the right and set it down. Safe. He let out a breath, a sharp hiss of air. You're not afraid of me. I'm terrified of you, Nia admitted honestly. But I'm more afraid of being broke. And you need me. I need no one, he snapped, turning his back on her. Leave. The door is. Well, you know where the door is. Since I missed it. You have the Hangul Gala in 2 days, Nia said. She had done her research. The board of directors is trying to vote you out. They say the blast that took your sight made you weak. They say a blind dog can't lead the pack. If you don't walk into that ballroom on Saturday night and look them in the eye, if you stumble, if you look confused, if you show 1 second of weakness, they will eat you alive. He stiffened. She had struck a nerve. I can be your eyes, Mr. Han, she said, taking a step forward. The glass crunched under her shoe. I can navigate you through that room. I can tell you who is smiling, who is lying, and who is holding a knife. But you have to trust me. He turned back around slowly. He walked toward her, using the sound of her voice as a beacon. He didn't stop until he was looming over her, blocking out what little light existed in the room. He smelled like expensive scotch, sandalwood, and loneliness. Trust, he whispered, leaning down so his face was inches from hers. I don't trust anyone. The last person I trusted planted the bomb in my car. He reached out his hand. His fingers were cold, long, and trembling slightly. He wasn't trying to hurt her. He was trying to find her. Nia held her breath. His fingertips brushed against her cheekbone. It was shocking electric. His touch was ghost-light, tracing the line of her jaw, then moving down to her neck. Pulse is 120, he murmured. You say you're brave, Nia. But your heart sounds like a trapped bird. Brave isn't the lack of fear, she managed to say. It's doing the job anyway. He pulled his hand back as if had been burned. He walked over to his desk, fumbled for a moment until he found a folder, and tossed it in her general direction. $20,000 a month, he said. Nia's jaw dropped. That was 4 times what the agency had quoted. But he continued, his voice hardening into steel. You move in tonight. You don't leave this penthouse unless I say so. You are my shadow. Where I go, you go. Bathroom, bedroom, boardroom. You are my eyes. And if you lie to me, if you tell me the sky is blue when it is gray, if you tell me a man is smiling when he is sneering, I will not fire you, Nia. I will destroy you. He paused, letting the threat hang in the damp air. Do we have a deal? Nia looked at the blind man standing in the dark, wearing a suit of armor to hide his wounds. She looked at the glass on the floor. We have a deal, she said. Guys, be honest in the comments right now. For $20,000 a month, would you sign a contract with a man who just threw a glass at your head? Let me know, because I think she might be crazy. And if you're enjoying the story so far, please smash that like button. It helps us keep the stories coming. The penthouse was a tomb. That was the only way to describe it. Nia moved in that evening with 2 suitcases and a heart full of regret. The entire top floor of the Han Tower was a sprawling mastery of modern architecture, floor-to-ceiling windows, marble floors, imported Italian leather couches. But it was lifeless. All the lights were off. The curtains were permanently drawn. The staff, a terrified older man named Mr. Kim and a chef who never spoke, moved around in silence, wearing soft-soled shoes so they wouldn't startle the master. It was suffocating. He is in the master bath, Mr. Kim whispered to her, handing her a stack of fresh towels. He had a bad night. He does not want to be disturbed, but he needs these. Why don't you take them? Nia asked. Mr. Kim looked at her with wide, fearful eyes. The last time I surprised him, he nearly broke my arm. He is on edge. Please, Miss Nia. You are the eyes now. Great. She was the eyes, and apparently, the sacrificial lamb. Nia walked down the long, dark hallway. She could hear water running. She knocked on the heavy oak door. Go away. Jae-sun's voice came through, muffled. It's Nia, she said, opening the door anyway. I have towels. The bathroom was like a sauna, filled with steam. It was massive, all black marble and gold fixtures. Jae-sun was standing in front of the sink, wearing only a towel around his waist. Nia stopped dead in her tracks. Okay, the man was a tyrant. He was rude, dangerous, and possibly psychotic. But he was also sculpted. Broad back, muscles that shifted like steel cables under his skin, and scars. Nasty, jagged scars that ran along his left side and up toward his temple, remnants of the explosion that took his sight. They didn't make him look ugly. They made him look like a war god who had survived the apocalypse. But then she saw what he was doing, and the intimidation vanished. He was trying to shave. He had a straight razor in his hand, a literal blade, and he was trying to guide it up his neck by feel. His hand was shaking. There were already 2 small cuts on his jawline, bleeding into the white shaving foam. He looked frustrated, his brow furrowed in concentration, trying to perform a simple task that he used to do without thinking. He brought the blade up again, but his angle was wrong. Stop! Nia rushed forward before she could think. He spun around, the razor slashing through the air. I said get out. You're going to slit your own throat, she snapped, grabbing his wrist. His skin was burning hot. He froze at her touch, his muscles locking up. He was strong, terrifyingly strong. If he wanted to, he could snap her wrist like a twig. But she didn't let go. Let go of me, he growled. I don't need your help. You have blood dripping onto your chest, Jae-sun, she said, using his first name for the first time. You have a meeting with the investors in 3 hours. Do you want to walk in there looking like you lost a knife fight with yourself? Or do you want to look like the dragon? He breathed heavily, his chest rising and falling against the humid air. He was fighting a war inside his head, pride versus necessity. Slowly, painfully slowly, his grip on the razor loosened. If you cut me, he whispered, a warning low in his throat, I will break your fingers. I won't cut you, she said softly. Sit down. He sat on the edge of the marble tub, defeated. Nia stepped between his legs. It was an incredibly intimate position, far too close for an employee and a boss, but there was no other way to get the angle right. She took a warm towel and wiped away the blood and the old foam. He flinched when the cloth touched his scars. Sorry, she murmured. I know it hurts. It doesn't hurt, he lied. I don't feel pain. Liar, she said. She reapplied the shaving cream. The smell of sandalwood and steam filled the space between them. She lifted the razor. Her hand was steady. She had been a medic in the Nigerian army for 2 years before coming to Korea. She knew how to handle a blade. She placed her left hand on his cheek to tilt his head back. He stopped breathing. Relax, she whispered. Trust me. She pulled the razor down his neck in a smooth, long stroke. The sound of steel against stubble was loud in the quiet room. "You're trembling," he noted. He couldn't see her, but he could feel the vibrations in her fingertips against his skin. "I'm not trembling," she lied. "You're just making me nervous." "Why?" he asked. He turned his face slightly toward hers. Even with his eyes closed, the intensity of his focus was overwhelming. "Am I that scary, Nia?" "Yes," she said, taking another stroke along his jawline. "But that's not why." "Then why?" She paused. Why was she nervous? Maybe because she was standing between the legs of a half-naked billionaire mafia boss, holding a blade to his neck, while he analyzed her heartbeat like a predator. Or maybe it was because, up close, beneath the anger and the scars, he was devastatingly handsome. Because, she said, deflecting, "I've never shaved a dragon before." One corner of his mouth twitched. It wasn't a smile, not really. But it was close. "You smell like rain," he said suddenly. "And cocoa butter? Is that what it is?" "Yes," she said, rinsing the razor. "My mother sends it from Lagos. It's the only thing that works for my skin in this dry Korean winter." He leaned in closer, just an inch. He inhaled deeply, his nose almost brushing her neck. Nia froze, the razor hovering in midair. "It's grounding," he muttered, almost to himself. "Everything else in this house smells like bleach and fear. You smell like earth." He pulled back, his mask of indifference sliding back into place. "Finish the job. Don't linger." Nia finished shaving him in silence, her heart hammering against her ribs. When she was done, she wiped his face clean with a cold towel and applied the aftershave. He didn't flinch this time. He stood up, towering over her again. He ran a hand over his jaw. "Smooth. Perfect. Acceptable," he said curtly. He reached for his dark glasses on the counter and shoved them onto his face, hiding the vulnerability she had just seen. "We leave for the office in 20 minutes. Wear something professional." "And Nia?" "Yes, sir?" "Where the bracelets," he said. Nia looked down at her wrist. She was wearing 3 silver bangles. They jingled softly whenever she moved. She usually took them off for work because they were noisy. "Why?" she asked. "Because," he said, turning to walk out of the bathroom, tapping his cane against the tiles. "I need to know where you are. I don't like it when you sneak up on me. The sound. It tells me I'm not alone in the dark." And with that, he was gone. Nia stood in the steamy bathroom, touching her own cheek where his breath had hit her skin. She realized then that this job was going to be much more dangerous than she thought. Not because of the assassins, or the glass throwing, or the mafia politics. But because for a second there, she wanted him to lean in again. She shook her head, slapping her cheeks to wake up. "Focus, Nia. You need the money. Don't fall for the patient. If you guys are shipping them already, drop a Team Dragon in the comments. But don't get too comfortable, because things are about to get really messy. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't yet, because you do not want to miss the gala scene coming up next." The drive to the Hongbu headquarters was silent. The windows of the limousine were tinted black, sealing them in. Jae-sun sat on one side, rigid, tapping his fingers on his knee. Nia sat opposite him, studying him. He was wearing a charcoal gray suit now, tailored to perfection. He looked powerful, invincible. No one looking at him would guess that 20 minutes ago. He was helpless in a towel. "Stop staring," he said, not turning his head. Nia jumped. "I'm not staring." "I can feel your eyes," he said. "It feels like heat. It's annoying." "I was just looking at your tie," she lied. "It's crooked." It wasn't crooked. It was perfect. He immediately reached up to fix it, a flash of insecurity crossing his face. "Fix it," he commanded. Nia leaned forward. The car swerved slightly as they navigated the busy Seoul traffic, and she stumbled, her hand landing on his thigh to steady herself. The contact was electric. His muscle jumped under her palm. She snatched her hand back like she'd touched a live wire. "Sorry," she gasped. "The car." He didn't yell. He didn't pull away. He just turned his head toward her, the black lenses reflecting her own flustered face. "You are clumsy," he murmured. "For a specialist. And you are grumpy for a billionaire," she shot back without thinking. The driver's eyes widened in the rearview mirror. No one spoke to Jae-sun Han like that. But Jae-sun didn't kill her. He just hummed, a low sound in his throat. "We are approaching the building," he said, his voice shifting into business mode. "Listen to me carefully, Nia. From this moment on, you are not my nurse. You are not my shaver. You are my executive assistant. There are sharks in this building. My uncle, the board members. They are looking for blood. If I hesitate, if I reach for a door handle that isn't there, if I trip, Stock prices drop. My empire crumbles. He leaned forward, his voice intense. You are my eyes. Do you understand? You whisper in my ear. You tell me who is in the room. You tell me how many steps to the chair. You tell me if my uncle is smiling. I understand, Nia said. Good. The car stopped. Showtime, he whispered. The door opened. Flashes of cameras erupted immediately. Paparazzi. Mr. Han. Mr. Han. Is it true you are stepping down? Mr. Han. Are the rumors about your site true? The noise was deafening. Jae-sun stiffened. Nia saw his hand clench into a fist. He was disoriented by the flashing lights and the screaming. He didn't know which way was forward. Panic was starting to set in. Nia stepped out of the car and moved smoothly to his side. She slipped her arm through his, gripping his bicep firmly. Chin up, she whispered into his ear, low enough that only he could hear. 3 cameras at 12 o'clock. Steps are 5 feet away. Walk straight. I've got you. He let out a breath, and his body relaxed against hers. He leaned into her, just a fraction, letting her take the weight. Lead the way, Shadow, he muttered. And together, they walked into the lion's den. The elevator ride up to the 50th floor of the Hongwu Corporation was agonizingly slow. The air inside the steel box was thin, recycled, and heavy with unspoken tension. Nia stood near the control panel, watching the floor numbers tick upward in glowing red digital light. Beside her, Jae-sun stood like a statue carved from obsidian. He hadn't moved a muscle since the doors closed, but Nia could see the tension radiating off him. His jaw was clenched so tight a small muscle feathered near his ear, and his hand gripped the silver railing until his knuckles turned white. He was terrified. The Dragon of Seoul, the man who supposedly ate competitors for breakfast, was terrified of walking onto his own office floor. Not because he feared business, but because he feared the pity. He feared the moment he might trip over a misplaced briefcase or reach for a hand that wasn't extended. 30 seconds, Nia said softly, breaking the silence. The elevator opens directly into the main lobby. The receptionist's desk is 12 feet ahead at the 11 o'clock position. There is a large abstract sculpture, metal, sharp edges, to your right at 2 o'clock. Don't drift right. Jae-sun didn't turn his head. I know the layout of my own building, Nia. You know the layout from 3 months ago. Nia corrected him, her voice firm but not unkind. They moved the sculpture last week. If you walk your old path, you'll tear your suit jacket on a piece of jagged steel. Do you want to make an entrance, or do you want to need a tailor? Jae-sun let out a sharp exhale through his nose. He hated that she was right. He hated that he needed her. But more than that, he hated the darkness that had swallowed his world whole. 12 feet. 11 o'clock, he repeated, memorizing the coordinates. Is anyone waiting? Director Kong, Nia said, glancing at the security monitor. He's pacing near the reception desk. He looks smug. Jae-sun's lip curled into a sneer. Gung. My uncle's favorite dog. He's here to sniff for blood. Then let's not give him any, Nia said. The elevator chimed. The doors slid open. The noise hit them instantly. The low hum of conversations, the clacking of keyboards, the ringing of phones. But the moment Jae-sun stepped out, the noise died. It was instantaneous. A hush swept across the massive open-plan office like a wave. Every head turned. Every typist froze. Nia stepped out just half a pace behind him, her eyes scanning the room like a radar. She saw the looks. They weren't looks of respect anymore. They were looks of curiosity. Morbid fascination. Is he really blind? Can he see us? Jae-sun hesitated. Just for a fraction of a second. The darkness was disorienting. The sudden change in acoustics threw off his equilibrium. Nia didn't touch him. She knew that would look weak in front of his employees. But she stepped closer, her silver bangles jingling softly. A clear, distinct sound. I am here. To your left. Jae-sun heard it. He anchored himself to the sound of the silver. He straightened his spine, adjusted his cuffs, and strode forward with the predatory grace of a jungle cat. He didn't walk toward the sculpture. He walked perfectly toward the reception desk. Director Kong, an oily man in a cheap suit, stepped forward with a fake smile plastered on his face. Nephew. Kong boomed, extending a hand for a handshake. We weren't expecting you in today. The rumors said you were indisposed. This was the first test. Kong had extended his hand silently. If Jae-sun didn't take it, he would look rude or, worse, blind. If he groped for it, he would look pathetic. Nia spoke immediately, her voice low and sharp, pitched perfectly for Jae-sun's ear. Handshake. Stomach level. 2 feet in front. Jae-sun didn't miss a beat. He reached out and gripped Kang's hand firmly, squeezing hard enough to make the older man wince. "I'm never indisposed, Kong," Jae-sun said, his voice ice-cold. "I'm just selective about who I see. And frankly, your tie is hideous enough to make anyone want to close their eyes." A ripple of nervous laughter went through the office. Nia suppressed a smile. He couldn't see the tie, of course. He was bluffing, but it worked. The power dynamic shifted instantly. The dragon was back. Well, Kong stammered, pulling his hand back and rubbing his crushed fingers. "The board is meeting in 10 minutes. Since you're here, perhaps you should join us?" "We were discussing the leadership transition." "There is no transition," Jae-sun said, walking past him toward the large double doors of his private office. "But it'll be there. Nia, bring the files." He didn't wait for an answer. He walked straight for his office door. Nia watched him, heart hammering, praying he wouldn't clip the doorframe. He cleared it by an inch. As the heavy door slammed shut behind them, isolating them from the prying eyes of the staff, Jae-sun crumbled. The facade vanished. He slumped against the door, his chest heaving, sweat beading on his forehead. He ripped the dark sunglasses off his face and threw them onto a nearby leather couch. "I hate them," he hissed, his eyes, unfocused and staring at nothing, blazing with fury. I could smell his cheap cologne. I could hear his heart rate spike when he thought I wouldn't see his hand. He thinks I'm a corpse walking. Nia set her bag down and walked over to him. She didn't offer pity. She offered a glass of water. "You did good," she said. "You scared him." "I guessed on the tie," Jae-sun muttered, taking the water. His hand brushed hers, and he lingered for a second, grounding himself in the warmth of her skin before pulling away. "Was it actually hideous?" "It was yellow with polka dots," Nia said. "It was a crime against fashion." Jae-sun let out a short, dry laugh. It was a rusty sound, like an engine that hadn't been turned on in years. "Good." He walked over to his massive executive chair and sat down, running his hands over the mahogany desk. This was his throne. But now, it felt like a cockpit he didn't know how to fly. "The meeting," he said, his voice tight again. "They are going to try to trap me, Nia. They will have documents, spreadsheets, projections. If I can't read them, they will vote for a vote of no confidence. They will strip me of my CEO title by lunch." He looked in her direction, his blind eyes searching for her silhouette. "I need you," he admitted, the words costing him a piece of his pride. "In that boardroom, you cannot be an assistant. You have to be my eyes. Can you do it?" Nia looked at the man who terrified an entire city, looking so small in his big chair. She thought about the $20,000. She thought about her brothers back home. But mostly, she thought about the way his hand had trembled when he touched her face. "I can do it," Nia said. "But we need a system. The whispering won't work if the room is quiet. They'll hear me. Then what?" Nia walked around the desk. She reached out and took his hand. He flinched, surprised, but didn't pull away. She turned his palm over and traced a line down his index finger. "Touch," she said. "If I tap your left hand once, the person speaking is lying. If I tap twice, they are telling the truth. If I squeeze your wrist, stop talking immediately." Jae-sun focused on the sensation of her finger on his palm. It was distracting. It was intimate. It sent a jolt of electricity up his arm that had nothing to do with business. "And if I need to kill someone?" he asked, half joking, half serious. "Then you squeeze my hand," Nia said softly, "and I'll tell you where to aim. If you're loving the chemistry between these two, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. We have so much more drama coming up, and you don't want to miss the notification bell." The boardroom was a shark tank. 12 men and women in expensive suits sat around a long, polished obsidian table. The air conditioning was set too low, making the room feel like a meat locker. When Jae-sun walked in, guided only by the soft jingle of Nia's bracelets, the conversation stopped dead. He took his seat at the head of the table. Nia sat to his right, a notebook open, looking every bit the diligent secretary. Under the table, out of sight, her hand rested lightly on his knee. "Let's begin," Jae-sun said, his voice commanding the room. For the first 20 minutes, it was a slaughter. With Nia's subtle taps on his hand under the table, Jae-sun navigated the conversation with terrifying precision. When the CFO tried to fudge the numbers on the shipping logistics, Nia tapped his hand once. "The numbers don't add up, Park," Jae-sun snapped immediately. "Check the third quarter logistics again. You're bleeding money in the Busan port." The CFO went pale. "How? How did you know?" "I see everything," Jae-sun lied smoothly. But then Director Kong made his move. "This is all very impressive," Jae-sun, Kong said, sliding a thick legal document across the slick table. but we need your signature on the new merger authorization. It's time sensitive. The partners are waiting." The room went silent. This was the trap. If Jae-sun signed it without reading it, he could be signing away his company. If he refused to sign, he admitted he couldn't read. If he asked his assistant to read it, he looked weak. Jae-sun froze. He could feel the paper under his fingertips. It felt thick, dangerous. Under the table, Nia's hand gripped his knee hard. "Wait." Nia leaned forward, her voice ringing out clear and professional. "Director Kong, surely you didn't print this on the standard legal draft paper?" Kong blinked, confused. "What?" Mr. Han specifically requested that all merger documents be drafted on the internal secure server first for digital review. Nia lied through her teeth, her face a mask of polite confusion. "You know he doesn't sign physical drafts until the digital encryption is verified. It's a security protocol. Did you forget?" She looked around the table at the other board members. "Did no one tell Director Kong about the new security protocol? We can't have physical copies floating around. It's a liability." The other board members, terrified of looking incompetent, nodded quickly. Yes, security protocol." Kong sputtered. I must have missed the memo. You'll have the digital copy sent to Mr. Han's secure terminal immediately," Nia said, snatching the paper away from Jae-sun. "He will review it in his office. Alone." She stood up. "Meeting ad Jornet." Jae-sun stood up with her, suppressing a smirk. He didn't say a word. He just turned and walked out, letting Nia guide him back to safety. Once they were back in the safety of his office, the adrenaline crash hit him hard. He loosened his tie, tearing at the knot as if it were choking him. "You are a liar," Jae-sun said, breathless. "A magnificent, terrible liar." "I learned from the best," Nia said, locking the door. He turned toward her sound. He moved quickly, closing the distance between them until he had her backed up against the heavy wooden door. He placed his hands on the wood on either side of her head, trapping her. He wasn't touching her, but he was so close she could feel the heat radiating off his chest. He lowered his head, his nose brushing against her temple. He inhaled deeply, desperately, drinking in the scent of cocoa butter and rain. "They were going to kill me in there," he whispered, his voice raw. "And you saved me." "That's my job," Nia breathed, her heart hammering against her ribs so hard she was sure he could hear it. "No," Jae-sun murmured, his lips hovering inches from her ear. "That wasn't the job. That was loyalty." He moved his head, his cheek brushing against hers. The stubble he hadn't shaved perfectly grazed her soft skin. The friction sent a shiver down her spine that made her knees weak. "I need you," he said, and this time it wasn't an order. It was a confession. "Tonight. The gala. I can't do it without you. I need you to be my eyes. I need you to be my everything." "I'll be there," Nia whispered. "Good," he said. He pulled back, just enough to speak clearly, though he didn't move his body away. "Because I have ordered a dress for you. Gold. To match your skin. If we are going into war, Nia, I want everyone to know that you belong to me." Nia's breath hitched. "Belong to you?" "My aide," he corrected quickly, though his voice dropped to that dangerous, dark timbre again. "My shadow." He pushed off the door and walked toward his desk, regaining his composure. "Go home. Pack a bag. We move to the hotel suite tomorrow afternoon to prep for the gala." "And Nia?" "Yes." He paused, his hand hovering over his braille keyboard. "Thank you." Nia stared at his back. The Dragon of Soul didn't say thank you. The world was tilting on its axis. As she left the office, her mind wasn't on the $20,000 anymore. It was on the feeling of his breath against her neck and the terrifying realization that she wasn't just working for a monster. She was starting to care for him. And that was the most dangerous thing she could possibly do. "Guys, the tension is getting unbearable. What do you think? Does he actually like her, or is he just using her because he's scared? Let me know your theories in the comments below. And seriously, hit that like button if you want to see what happens at the gala. The next 24 hours were a blur of preparation. The Hangguo Annual Gala was the event of the season, a gathering of Seoul's elite, corrupt, and powerful. For Jae-sun, it was usually a victory lap. This year, it was a Shark Tank. They moved into the presidential suite of the Shilla Hotel to prepare. The suite was lavish, but as usual, Jae-sun demanded the curtains be drawn. Nia spent the afternoon memorizing the guest list, the floor plan, and the exits. She fed the information to Jae-sun, who sat on the edge of the bed, absorbing every detail with terrifying recall. "The ballroom has 3 steps leading down to the dance floor," Nia recited. Waiters will be circulating from the left kitchen entrance. 3 steps, Jason repeated. Left entrance. Got it. Then the dress arrived. It came in a black box with gold lettering. When Nia opened it, she gasped. It was a floor-length gown made of shimmering gold silk, with a slit that ran up the thigh and a neckline that was elegant but daring. It was the kind of dress that stopped traffic. Put it on, Jason commanded from the other room. I need to know if it fits. You can't see it, Nia argued, holding the silk against her body. I can hear the fabric, he said. Silk makes a specific sound when it moves. Put it on. Nia went into the bathroom and changed. The dress fit like a second skin. It hugged her curves in ways that made her feel powerful and exposed all at once. She stepped out into the main room. The silk whispered against her legs with every step. Jason stood up from the couch. He had changed into his tuxedo. He looked devastating. The crisp black suit contrasted sharply with his pale skin and dark hair. He was wearing his dark glasses again. He turned his head toward the sound of the dress. Come here, he said. Nia walked over to him. She stopped 2 feet away. Closer, he ordered. She stepped closer until the tips of her shoes touched his. Spin, he said. She spun. The dress flared out, the fabric rustling softly. Gold, he stated. He didn't ask, he just said it. How do you know? Nia asked. Because. Jason reached out and took her hand, bringing it to his lips. He kissed her knuckles, a courtly gesture that felt shockingly intimate. You feel like the sun. And the sun is gold. He dropped her hand abruptly, the moment of softness vanishing as quickly as it came. Put your earpiece in, he said, adjusting his cuffs. The car is waiting. Tonight, we don't just survive, Nia. Tonight, we remind them why they call me the dragon. Nia inserted the tiny invisible earpiece. I'm ready. Then lead the way, he said, extending his elbow for her to take. As they walked out of the suite toward the elevator that would take them down to the ballroom, Nia felt a shift. They weren't just boss and employee anymore. They were partners, accomplices. But she didn't know that downstairs, waiting in the crowd, was a man who knew Jason's secret. A man who had been paid to make sure the dragon fell, literally and figuratively, in front of the entire world. The elevator dinged. The doors opened. The noise of 1,000 people hit them. Showtime, Jason whispered. And they stepped into the light. The ballroom of the Shilla Hotel was a galaxy of crystal chandeliers, velvet drapes, and the kind of suffocating wealth that made the air feel thin. A string quartet played in the corner, the music floating over the low hum of gossip and clinking champagne glasses. To anyone else, it was a party. To Nia, it was a battlefield. She tightened her grip on Jason's arm as they stood at the top of the grand staircase. Below them, hundreds of faces turned upward. The whispers started immediately, a collective hiss of judgment. They were looking at the dragon, searching for cracks in his armor. They were looking at the scar on his temple. And they were looking at the woman in the gold dress standing beside him. 3 steps down, Nia whispered, her voice a calm anchor in his ear. First step is 6 inches deep. Take it on your left foot. Jason moved without hesitation. He descended the stairs with the regal arrogance of a king who owned the ground beneath his feet. He didn't look down. He looked straight ahead, his dark glasses reflecting the chandeliers, his face impassive. Second step, Nia murmured. Third step, floor is level. 12 o'clock is clear for 20 feet. They reached the bottom of the stairs. A waiter approached with a tray of champagne. Waiter at 10 o'clock, Nia said quickly. Tray is high. Don't swing your left arm. Jason tucked his elbow in smoothly, missing the tray by a fraction of an inch. He looked untouchable. Dance with me, he said suddenly. Nia stumbled slightly. What? Everyone is staring, Jason murmured, leaning his head toward her as if sharing a lover's secret. If we stand here, they will approach us. They will want to test me. But if we dance, they have to wait. And I need to feel the room before I talk to them. I don't know if that's a good idea, Nia whispered back, scanning the crowd. It's crowded. Do you trust me? Nia looked up at him. His jaw was set, but his hand on her arm was gentle. Yes. Then guide me. He pulled her onto the dance floor. The quartet shifted into a slow waltz. Jason placed one hand on her waist, his touch burning through the thin silk of her dress, and took her right hand in his. This is dangerous, Nia breathed as he swept her into the turn. Life is dangerous, Nia, he replied, his voice low and husky. At least this has music. They moved together in a silence that screamed louder than the orchestra. For a blind man, he led with terrifying precision. He relied entirely on the tension in her frame. When she stiffened, he slowed. When she relaxed, he spun her. Director Choi is at 4 o'clock, Nia reported, her cheek brushing against his lapel. He looks nervous. He's sweating. Good, Jae-sun said. Choi owes me money. Let him sweat. Your cousin is at 9 o'clock. She's staring daggers at me. She's jealous, Jae-sun murmured, pulling Nia closer until their bodies were pressed flush against each other. She knows she'll never look as good in gold as you do. Nia's breath hitched. The compliment caught her off guard. She looked up at his face, shielded by the dark glasses, wishing she could see his eyes. For a moment, the room fell away. The hostility of the crowd faded. There was just the warmth of his hand on her waist and the smell of sandalwood. You're doing it again, Jae-sun whispered. Doing what? Your heart, he said. It's beating against my chest. It's fast. It's the dancing, Nia lied. Is it? He lowered his head, his lips brushing her ear. Or is it because you realize that right now, in front of all these people, you're the only thing holding me up? I think you hold yourself up just fine, Jae-sun, she replied softly. The music swelled to a crescendo. He spun her one last time, dipping her slightly. It was a power move. A statement. I am the dragon. I am not broken. And this woman is mine. As the song ended, polite applause rippled through the room. Jae-sun straightened, adjusting his jacket. Now, he said, his voice hardening back into business mode. Let's go greet the vultures. For the next hour, they were a perfect machine. Nia was his radar, whispering names and details before people even extended their hands. Jae-sun charmed, threatened, and negotiated with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He was winning. The rumors of his weakness were evaporating with every firm handshake and sharp retort. But then the inevitable happened. Mr. Han. A voice boomed. It was an elderly senator, a man with too much power and too little patience. A word in private, please? Jae-sun stiffened. Senator. Of course. Alone, the senator insisted, eyeing Nia with disdain. This is family business. Jae-sun hesitated. His hand tightened on Nia's arm. He didn't want to let go. To let go was to go blind again. It's okay, Nia whispered, tapping his hand twice, the signal for safe. I'll wait by the bar. It's 10 feet behind you. Straight line. Jae-sun reluctantly released her. Don't go far. If I call you, I'll be there, she promised. She watched him walk away with the senator, counting his steps to ensure he didn't trip. Once he was seated safely in a private alcove, Nia let out a breath she had been holding for 2 hours. She retreated to the bar, needing a moment of peace. She ordered a sparkling water and leaned against the velvet counter, watching the room. So, a slurry voice spoke from her left. You're the new seeing eye dog. Nia stiffened. She turned to see a young man in a flashy white tuxedo. He was holding a scotch glass that was nearly empty. She recognized him from the dossier, Min-ho, the son of a rival shipping magnate. A spoiled prince with a reputation for cruelty. Excuse me? Nia said, her voice cool. The dragon's pet, Min-ho sneered, stepping into her personal space. He looked her up and down, his eyes lingering on the slit in her dress with crude entitlement. My father says Jae-sun is finished. Says he's keeping a pretty little foreign thing around to distract us from the fact that he's a cripple. Nia set her glass down. I think you've had enough to drink, sir. I suggest you walk away before you embarrass yourself. Min-ho laughed, a wet, ugly sound. Embarrass myself? You're the help. You don't tell me what to do. He reached out and grabbed her wrist. His grip was wet and tight. Let go, Nia warned, trying to pull her hand back. Come on, Min-ho leered, pulling her closer. Why don't you show me what you do for him in private? I bet I pay better than a blind man. I said let go. Nia snapped. She twisted her arm, using a military self-defense technique to break his grip, but he was heavier than he looked and stumbling drunk. He grabbed her other arm, pinning her against the bar. Don't play hard to get, he hissed. You're just a... Suddenly, Min-ho stopped speaking. His eyes went wide. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Because a hand, large, pale, and trembling with lethal rage, had clamped onto the back of his neck. Jae-sun was there. He hadn't been watching. He couldn't see the struggle. But through the earpiece, he had heard the shift in Nia's breathing. He had heard the distress in her voice. And he had crossed 30 feet of crowded ballroom in 10 seconds, navigating by pure, blind fury. Mr. Han. Min-ho choked out, trying to squirm away. Jae-sun didn't speak. He just squeezed. He forced Min-ho down, bending him over the bar counter until his face was pressed into the spilled ice. The music stopped. The room went dead silent. Hundreds of eyes locked onto the scene. Jae-sun, Nia whispered, terrified. Jae-sun, stop. Everyone is watching. Let them watch, Jae-sun said. His voice wasn't a growl. It was a calm, terrifying flatline. He leaned down, his dark glasses reflecting Minho's terrified face. You touched her, Jae-sun stated. It was a simple fact, but it sounded like a death sentence. I was just... Minho stammered. She is my eyes, Jae-sun continued, his voice carrying across the silent room. When you touch her, you touch me. When you disrespect her, you disrespect the Hongwu family. He shifted his grip, moving his hand from Minho's neck to the wrist that had grabbed Nia. And I break things that offend me. Crack. The sound of the wrist snapping was sickeningly loud. Minho screamed, dropping to his knees as Jae-sun released him. The young man cradled his broken arm, wailing in agony. Jae-sun didn't even look down. He reached out into the void, his hand searching. Nia, he said softly. Nia immediately took his hand. Her fingers laced with his. I'm here, she whispered, shaking. Did he hurt you? Jae-sun asked, ignoring the screaming man on the floor and the horrified gasps of the elite. No, Nia said. I'm okay. Good, Jae-sun said. He adjusted his cufflinks, turning his face to the crowd. The party is over. Get out of my way. He didn't wait for the crowd to part. He walked forward, and the sea of people split like the Red Sea. They weren't looking at a crippled man anymore. They were looking at a monster who would burn the world down for the woman in the gold dress. Nia guided him to the exit, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst. She wasn't scared of the crowd. She wasn't even scared of what he had just done. She was scared by how safe she felt with his hand crushing hers. If that scene didn't give you chills, I don't know what will. That is the definition of touch her and die. If you are loving this darker, protective side of Jae-sun, please subscribe to the channel right now. We are heading into the climax. And trust me, the storm is just beginning. The ride back to the penthouse was silent, but it wasn't the awkward silence of the morning. It was charged. The air in the car felt thick with adrenaline. Outside, the weather had turned. A torrential storm was hammering Seoul. Rain lashed against the blacked-out windows, and flashes of lightning illuminated the interior of the car in brief, strobe light bursts. Jae-sun sat in the corner, staring at nothing. His chest was heaving. He was coming down from the violence, and the crash was brutal. You shouldn't have done that, Nia said softly. The board will use it against you. Assaulting a shareholder's son. He touched you, Jae-sun said. That was his only defense. As if it explained everything. As if it justified murder. Jae-sun. Stop, he snapped, running a hand through his hair, messing up the perfect styling. Don't tell me I was wrong. I couldn't see Nia. I heard your breath change. I heard him grab you. I was helpless. For 10 seconds, I was trapped in the dark while some animal put his hands on you. Do you have any idea what that felt like? He turned his head toward her. He took off his glasses. His eyes, usually hidden, looked glassy and haunted in the dim light. I wanted to kill him, he confessed, his voice breaking. Not for business. Not for pride. Because he made you afraid. And I promised. I promised you would be safe with me. Nia reached out across the seat. She placed her hand on his cheek. I am safe, she whispered. You saved me. He leaned into her touch, closing his eyes. He looked exhausted. The dragon was gone. Only the man was left. Take me home, he whispered. I'm tired of the noise. The car pulled up to the Han Tower private entrance. The storm was raging now, wind howling through the skyscrapers. The driver opened the door with an umbrella, but the rain was sideways, soaking them instantly as they ran for the lobby. They stepped into the private elevator, dripping wet. Nia's gold dress clung to her skin. Jae-sun's hair was plastered to his forehead. Mr. Kim will have tea ready, Nia said, trying to normalize the situation as the elevator climbed. And a fire. You need to warm up. I need whiskey, Jae-sun corrected. The elevator chimed at the penthouse floor. The doors slid open. But instead of the warm glow of the foyer lamps, they were met with absolute, suffocating darkness. Nia stepped out, frowning. Mr. Kim? The lights are out. She reached for the wall switch. Click. Click. Nothing. Power outage? She guessed. Because of the storm? Jae-sun stood in the doorway of the elevator. He didn't move. He tilted his head, his body going rigid. No, he whispered. The backup generator should have kicked in instantly. The security system runs on a separate grid. He sniffed the air. Nia, he said, his voice dropping to a terrified whisper. Get back in the elevator. What? Gunpowder, he said. Fresh. Before Nia could move, a flash of lightning illuminated the massive living room. In the split second of light, Nia saw them. 3 men, dressed in tactical black gear, night vision goggles strapped to their faces, silenced pistols raised. They were standing over the body of the security guard. Run! Jae-sun roared, shoving Nia backward. Phut. Phut. 2 bullets thudded into the elevator door frame, inches from Nia's head. Sparks flew. Jae-sun didn't retreat. He lunged forward into the dark room, swinging his heavy cane like a mace. He wasn't running away. He was creating a distraction. Jae-sun. Nia screamed, scrambling out of the elevator as the doors tried to close. She couldn't leave him. He was blind. They had night vision. It was a slaughter waiting to happen. She rolled onto the marble floor, diving behind a heavy sofa just as another bullet shredded the cushion above her head. The room was pitch black again. The only light came from the red glowing eyes of the assassin's goggles. They could see everything. Nia and Jae-sun could see nothing. He's blind. One of the assassins called out, his voice muffled by a mask. Take him out first. The girl is hiding by the couch. Nia's heart stopped. They knew. She looked across the room. She couldn't see Jae-sun, but she heard his heavy breathing somewhere near the fireplace. He was pinned down. He was going to die. Unless... Nia looked up at the ceiling. Above the center of the room was the industrial fire suppression system. The sprinklers. If she could trigger them, it wouldn't just rain water. In a building this high-tech, it would dump chemical suppressant fog. Thick, white, opaque. It would blind the night vision goggles. Jae-sun. Nia screamed into the darkness. 12 o'clock. Hi. Shoot the pipe. There was a pause. The assassins turned toward her voice, aiming their weapons. But Jae-sun didn't hesitate. He didn't ask why. He trusted her eyes. He pulled the gun he kept taped under the grand piano, the one Nia had found on her first day cleaning, and fired blindly into the ceiling. Bang! A hiss filled the room. Then a roar. Thick, white chemical fog blasted down from the ceiling, filling the room in seconds. The red eyes of the night vision goggles vanished in the whiteout. The assassins started shouting, confused, ripping off their masks. They couldn't see a thing. The fog was too dense. The room was plunged into a new kind of blindness. A white void. Nia coughed, pulling her dress over her nose. She couldn't see her hand in front of her face. But from the center of the fog, she heard a sound. Tap. Tap. The cane. Jae-sun's voice drifted through the mist, cold and calm. Gentlemen, he whispered. Welcome to my world. The dragon was in his element now. And he was hungry. The room was a white void. The chemical fog hissed as it settled, thick and suffocating, reducing visibility to 0. Even the high-tech night vision goggles the assassins wore were useless now. The infrared light just bounced off the dense particulate matter, blinding them with white noise. For the 3 men in tactical gear, it was a nightmare. They were disoriented, coughing, spinning in circles with their weapons raised, terrified of the shadows. But for Jae-sun, nothing had changed. He stood perfectly still near the piano. He didn't need to see. He had spent 3 months mapping this room in the dark. He knew that the coffee table was 4 steps to his left. He knew the marble pillar was 2 steps back. And he knew exactly where the assassins were. He could hear the heavy, panicked breathing of the man near the window. Huff. Huff. He could hear the shifting of boots on broken glass near the elevator. Scritch. He could hear the faint electronic whine of their malfunctioning goggles. Jae-sun moved. He didn't run. He flowed. He stepped out of his shoes, moving in his socks to be silent. He gripped the heavy antique cane in his left hand and the pistol in his right. Where is he? One assassin shouted, his voice muffled by the fog. I can't see a damn thing. Stay sharp. Another yelled. He's blind. Just spray the room. Bad mistake. Jae-sun honed in on the voice. The man was 10 feet away, near the entrance to the kitchen. Jae-sun lunged. He swung the cane with the force of a sledgehammer. It connected with a sickening crunch against the assassin's knee. The man screamed, crumpling to the floor. Before he could hit the ground, Jae-sun stepped in, driving the handle of the cane into the man's solar plexus, silencing him instantly. One down. Over there. The second assassin screamed, spinning toward the sound of the body hitting the floor. He opened fire blindly. Bang! 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 Bullets chewed up the drywall and shattered a vase, but Jae-sun was already gone. He had moved to the right, behind the cover of the marble pillar. Nia was huddled behind the sofa, her hands over her ears, tears streaming down her face. She was terrified, but she remembered what Jae-sun had told her in the bathroom. Where are the bracelets? I need to know where you are. She slowly lowered her hands. She shook her wrist. Jingle. The soft, silver sound cut through the chaos like a bell. Jae-sun heard it. The sofa. She is safe. She is low. He triangulated the position of the second shooter. The man was reloading. The metallic click of the magazine echoed in the silence. Jae-sun raised his pistol. He didn't aim with his eyes. He aimed with his ears. He leveled the gun at chest height, just slightly to the left toward the heavy breathing, and pulled the trigger. The shot was deafening in the enclosed space. There was a grunt, then the heavy thud of a body collapsing. 2 down. The room fell silent again. The fog swirled lazily, hiding the violence. Come out, dragon! The leader of the hit squad yelled. His voice was shaking. He was the last one left. He was standing near the center of the room, turning in circles, his gun shaking in his hand. I know you're here. Jae-sun didn't answer. He stepped out from behind the pillar. Tap. He let his cane hit the floor intentionally. The assassin spun around and fired. The bullet shattered the window behind Jae-sun, missing him by inches. Tap. Jae-sun moved again, closer this time. He was toying with him. He wanted the man to know that in the dark, the blind man was king. The assassin panicked. He started backing up, swinging his gun wildly. Stay back. I'll kill her. I'll kill the girl. He didn't know where the girl was. He was bluffing, but the threat made Jae-sun's blood run cold. Jae-sun stopped moving. He went completely still. The assassin backed up until his legs hit the sofa. He reached down and grabbed a handful of fabric, Nia's dress. Nia screamed. I got her. The assassin yelled, dragging Nia up from behind the couch. He wrapped an arm around her throat, pressing the barrel of his gun to her temple. Drop the gun, Han, or I paint the wall with her. The fog was too thick. Jae-sun couldn't see them. He knew the general direction, but if he missed by an inch. Let her go, Jae-sun said, his voice calm, deadly, and devoid of fear. Drop the gun. The assassin shrieked. Kick it over here. Jae-sun slowly lowered his weapon. He bent his knees, placing the gun on the floor. He slid it across the marble. It clattered against the assassin's boots. Good. The assassin laughed, a hysterical, jagged sound. Now get on your knees. I'm going to finish what the bomb started. Nia was trembling in the man's grip. The gun was digging into her skin. She looked into the white mist, unable to see Jae-sun, but knowing he was there. Jae-sun, she whispered. Her voice was barely audible, but he heard it. He heard the catch in her throat. He heard the rustle of her silk dress. And most importantly, he heard the jingle of her bracelets as she struggled. The bracelets were near the assassin's chest height. That meant she was standing. The assassin was taller. His head would be 6 inches above the sound of the silver. Jae-sun reached into his jacket pocket. He didn't have another gun, but he had a fountain pen. A heavy solid steel Montblanc pen. You think you've won, Jae-sun said softly. But you made one mistake. Yeah. What's that? The assassin sneered, tightening his grip on the trigger. You're breathing too loud. Jae-sun moved faster than humanly possible. He didn't lunge for the assassin. He lunged for the sound. He closed the 10-foot gap in a blur of motion. The assassin squeezed the trigger, but Jae-sun was already there. He slapped the gun barrel upward just as it fired. The bullet blasted into the ceiling. In the same motion, Jae-sun drove the steel pen into the side of the assassin's neck. The man gurgled, dropping Nia as he clutched his throat. He staggered back and fell, gasping for air that wouldn't come. Nia fell to her knees, gasping, coughing in the chemical fog. Nia, Jae-sun shouted, dropping to the floor. He was frantic now. The cool, calculated killer was gone. He swept his hands across the floor, searching for her. Nia, talk to me. Where are you? I'm here, she sobbed, reaching out. His hand found hers. He pulled her into him with desperate force, burying his face in her neck, his hands running over her arms, her back, checking for bullet holes. Did he hurt you? He demanded, his voice cracking. Tell me he didn't touch you. I'm okay, Nia cried, clinging to his soaked suit jacket. I'm okay. You got him. You got them all. Jae-sun let out a shuddering breath. He wrapped his arms around her, rocking her back and forth in the swirling white mist. I thought I lost you, he whispered into her hair. I couldn't see. I couldn't see. You didn't need to see, Nia whispered back, pulling back to look at his face. His sunglasses were gone. His eyes were wide and unfocused, but they were looking right at her. You saw everything. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting louder. The police were coming. But in that moment, sitting on the floor of a ruined penthouse surrounded by bodies and fog, the Dragon of Soul didn't care about the law. He just held onto his Nigerian Aide as if she were the only anchor left in the world. Guys, take a deep breath. I think I stopped breathing for that entire scene. If your heart is racing as fast as mine, hit that subscribe button right now. We are heading to the finale, and you need to see how this ends. The next few hours were a chaotic haze of flashing blue lights, police questions, and paramedics. Jason refused to let the medics touch him until they had checked Nia. He sat on the back of an ambulance, a blanket draped over his shoulders, his face grim. He looked like a fallen king, bruised, bloody, but unbroken. Nia walked over to him. The paramedics had cleaned a small cut on her cheek, but otherwise, she was unharmed. They want to take you to the hospital, Nia said softly. Your hand is bleeding. Jason looked down at his right hand. His knuckles were split from punching the assassin. He hadn't even noticed. I'm not going, he said stubbornly. I have to deal with the police. I have to clean this up. The lawyers will handle the police, Nia said, stepping between his legs just like she had in the bathroom that morning. She took his damaged hand in hers. You are going to the hospital. And not just for your hand. Jason frowned. What are you talking about? The doctor, Nia said. Dr. Park. He called me while you were giving your statement. He saw the medical scans from the ambulance. She paused, her thumb tracing the back of his hand. He thinks the trauma to your head. The adrenaline. It might have shifted the pressure on your optic nerve. He thinks there's a chance, Jason. A real chance. He wants to operate tonight. Jason went still. He pulled his hand away. No, he said sharply. I've had 5 surgeries. None of them worked. I'm not doing it again. I'm not waking up in the dark again with false hope. I'd rather stay blind. Look at me, Nia commanded. I can't. Jason yelled, his voice breaking. That's the point, Nia. I can't look at you. I can smell you. I can hear you. I can feel you. But I can't see the one thing I want to see most. He turned his face away, ashamed of the outburst. I am tired of the dark, he whispered. But I am more tired of the disappointment. Nia reached out and turned his face back toward her. She leaned in and pressed her forehead against his. You won't be alone this time, she promised. I will be there when you go under. And I will be there when you wake up. If it's dark, we will be in the dark together. But you have to try. For you. For us. Jason froze. Us? Nia didn't answer with words. She leaned forward and pressed a soft, lingering kiss to his cheek, just below the rim of his dark glasses. Please, she whispered. Jason sat there for a long moment, the chaos of the crime scene fading into the background. He listened to her heartbeat. It was steady. Strong. He let out a long sigh. Fine, he said. Call the doctor. But if I wake up and you aren't holding my hand, I'm firing you. Nia smiled, tears pricking her eyes. Deal. 1 month later. The hospital room was bright. Sunlight poured in through the open windows, smelling of spring and fresh linens. Jason sat on the edge of the bed. He was dressed in casual clothes, a soft gray sweater and dark pants, stripping away the armor of his suits. His head was wrapped in heavy gauze bandages, covering his eyes. He was tapping his foot nervously. Stop tapping. Nia's voice came from the chair beside him. You're making Dr. Park nervous. I'm not nervous, Dr. Park laughed, adjusting his instruments. But Mr. Han, I need you to sit still. We're ready. Jason froze. His hand shot out blindly. Nia? I'm here, she said immediately, taking his hand. Her grip was warm, familiar. The anchor. Okay. Jason exhaled. Do it. Dr. Park stepped forward. I'm going to cut the bandages now. Keep your eyes closed until I tell you to open them. The light will be intense at first. Snip. Snip. The sound of the scissors was loud in the quiet room. The pressure around Jason's head released.